Everybody, welcome. You're hanging out with Ben. This is the Hardcore Punk Project here on the X 92.5 FM in Kamloops. Today we have the band Fell Harvest. A little bit on the band. The band originally formed back in 2012 under the name Thorns of Acanthus, releasing one EP called The Ash in My Hands Will Salt My Wounds in 2014. They changed their name to Fell Harvest in 2016 and now have two new releases under their belts. 2020's self-titled EP and the up-and-coming full-length Pale Light in a Dying World out July 16th. Today we have two of the three members, Joseph Fell, or Joseph Tata, and Liam Duncan. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having us.
Right. You okay with the team interviewing you?
Yes, actually. Pretty cool.
Yeah, let's do it.
Why did you change your name?
Well, there was a period during there that Thorns of Acanthus had actually broken up. I was playing bass in another project called Craftion, which was an H.P. Lovecraft themed and oriented black metal band. And when I started trying to think about reforming Thorns, I found Liam, I found our drummer Angel. After a little while, it became obvious that the style had changed. My lyrical focus had changed quite a bit, and we agreed that it might just be better to come up with a new name to kind of capture the new concept and the new energy.
All right. Cool. Now, fun fact, the band's logo/sigil depicts an undead elk with rotting branches for antlers. The stag's name is CJ, short for Creutzfeldt Jacob, or mad cow disease, which is a disease that bovines can get. Correct. Why did you choose this stag as your logo?
I don't remember an exact reason. We were throwing out ideas. I was talking to a friend of mine about doing our logo, which would be the title logo with the words for the band's name. And she is really talented at making creepy wildlife photos. And she sent me this sketch of a zombie elk, and I just thought it was the coolest thing ever. And I had already been working with kind of a woodcut Albrecht Dürer inspired FH for the sigil, and I sent that to her. She put them together, and that's what we use today.
I also think, I don't think this is the main reason, but I think part of it, for me at least, is it's a pretty cool nod to the band Agalock and their album The Mantle, which has an elk on the cover. And that's one of our big influences together as a band. And so kind of having that relationship between our logo and between that album cover was something that was very apt to me.
All right.
Absolutely.
All right. Now let's talk about some of the songs on all the songs on Pale Light in a Dying World, and some other stuff, shall we?
Sure.
Yep.
Okay, first one is Titanicide. This song sounds awesome, especially when it breaks down towards the end. I also find it interesting when the song gets quieter, but it doesn't totally fade out. What do you have to say about this one? What's the lyrics about and all that?
Titanicide's music really comes from some basically stale homeless riffs that I'd written as a teen. They were really inspired by Samel and At the Gates and that sort of movement of kind of not quite doom, but not quite fast enough to be true death metal, with a lot more emphasis on melody, and then the true Gothenburg Melodeath bands that I grew up really loving. When we were looking for one more song to finish off the album, I just brought that out, got an idea for a riff, which is the slow, really heaviest part in the middle where it drops down into B, and put a couple of these little ideas together and sent them to Liam, and he really liked it. So we decided to come up with something. At that point, it didn't have a title, but I just one day thought of the phrase Titanicide, and sort of a nod to being directly inspired by, but trying to move at least personally beyond idolization of some other bands. And the lyrics deal with concepts around metaphorically, but also in reality, humanity growing past its obsession with gods and moving into more of a self-actualized, self-realized state.
All right.
I think this was the last song that really made it onto the album. I feel
really
like
almost an afterthought. We just decided we needed one more,
Yeah, and it was kind of, okay, if we have time and if this makes sense, we can record this. And over the course of recording the album, it just became more and more clear that this was something that we really enjoyed playing and wanted to get on there.
Yeah.
Okay. About the vocals now, something that I noticed is that pre-Pale Light is a bit more growly and guttural, while Pale Light sounds a bit more raspy and operatic. Can you tell us why?
Yeah, I unfortunately contracted COVID right near the end of the recording process, and it severely damaged my lungs. I lost about 18% lung capacity, according to the healthcare professionals I've talked to later. And I found that I couldn't get enough wind to support proper growled vocals, which have always kind of been a weak spot for me. It's not like my most native way of singing. This happened like when I was literally sitting down to start recording, and it was really upsetting for me. And I realized that, well, this for a while I wasn't sure we were going to be able to make this happen, but decided to sort of revert to the, like you said, a little bit more operatic influence. I actually did train as an opera singer when I went to music school. It was my principal instrument for a couple of semesters, and I have a strong background in that form of vocal training. So I was able to kind of pull enough technique to still make it work even without full using my lung.
All right. So you had contracted COVID. How has this lingering effect after it's gone affected you?
Um, I was pretty much fully recovered by around New Year's, but even then, like any kind of like decent aerobic exercise would really kill me, which was a comparison to like I was riding my bike and walking my dogs pretty regularly before that, so I was in decent shape for a guy my age. But it still stuck around for quite a while and required a good bit of training to get back to the point that I can really live my life and be, you know, more active. As far as singing went, when we started reconvening, I noticed myself struggling for a long time. I think I've only in the past couple weeks really gotten back to the point that I'm better at vocals than pre-COVID. I don't know if Liam would have noticed or not, but it was definitely hard.
Oh, no, I think that's absolutely the case. When we've been rehearsing, and finished recording the album, and then 2 weeks later we were back to rehearsal, and you could definitely tell that there was something kind of off, and like not rehearsing vocals or having to take a lot of time in between songs and stuff. And I think you have built it back up pretty well, but that was pretty shocking for a while, I think. So glad he's back.
Yeah, and it's interesting doing this today because I actually did finally get my first round of COVID vaccine this week, and now I feel like I have COVID.
You're back on that.
All right. You think your friends from like previous bands like Thorns of Acanthus and 2020 era Fell Harvest are gonna like this new release? I'm betting they will.
I really think so, and the feedback we've gotten on the two singles out so far, Titanicide and then also the title track, which is on the Doom and Stone in Colorado competition, the feedback has been pretty positive, and everyone has seemed to really be impressed with what we put together. So that's very, very gratifying. I'm glad our existing fans like it, and I really hope that some new people can discover the band through it.
All right. When we start back our lives after COVID, referred to as the new normal, what do you see as far as change? What do you see changing as far as tours?
That's a good question. We're trying to book some live dates now, and it's probably still a little too early. There's very few venues that can commit on times. A lot of people are just saying, you know, get back to us. We'll do something with you when we're open, but we don't know when that's going to be. Once everything is fully open, I'd like to say it's mostly going to go back to the way it was, but I probably don't think so. I think there will be some challenges around international travel for quite a long time. As far as people being able to go to shows, the landscape's changed just by virtue of a lot of venues have closed and weren't able to survive the pandemic and the business disruptions. And a lot of people have moved to, you know, other careers where they can maybe work from home more safely. And, you know, restaurants are closed, bars are closed. So I don't know where we're going to be playing. Hopefully we'll get back to some places we played before. Hopefully, cool bands, which it's always a challenge to get really cool European bands into North America. And I think that's probably going to only get harder. But hopefully we can still make it happen. And we would still very much like to go overseas and play in Europe and Canada as well.
All right. Now, next song is, as you mentioned earlier, the title track. I can definitely hear an influence from Opeth here, like songs like Deliverance and Window Pane. I like it. What do you have to say about this one?
I would never try to compare myself directly with Opeth, but if you're going to say it, I will take the compliment. They're one of my absolute favorite bands. I absolutely love Mikkel's songwriting style. Huge influence on me as a singer, huge influence on me as a songwriter and guitarist. And we definitely really appreciate being compared in the same sentence.
All right. Oh. Yeah, Mikkel kind of surprises me too, because he has his soft songs like Window Pane, and then when you listen to Bloodbath, which is another band that he used to be in, and you listen to some of their songs, you're like, this isn't the guy that I was listening to.
Yeah, but he still does it so well in both cases.
Yes. No, and that's what it is, and I think that's why he's been such a big influence for us in the music of Opeth, is their heaviest stuff and their kind of softer stuff. There's a through line there of kind of the style and the clarity of the writing that I think we really tried to capture on this as well. I don't know if we pulled it off, but I think that was a pretty conscious thought from Joseph and I while we were working on this album. So that's cool that you made that connection.
All right. I mean, even my PR guy said that the band sounded like Opeth, so I guess I can agree with that.
We'll take it. Thank you.
Okay. How do you come up with your songs? Is it a wordless melody first, or is it lyrics and then figure out the music?
There's no one way. Sometimes there's a riff lying around or something that hits my head and I build a song around it. One track on the album that we'll probably talk about shortly, that Barren Fields, was literally a riff that Liam showed me, and then it just inspired a lot of other connective tissue, and I was able to put a whole song together. Sometimes I actually write the lyrics first because I have an idea for a story or an idea for something I want to describe, or even just a song title, and then that may sit for a bit or come back later, and then I'll just think that, well, this might actually fit the same idea and feel like the same concept.
In my experience working with Joseph, which is what, 5 years now or so?
About, yeah.
One of us will have an idea, whether it's a riff or a melody or an idea for a song, and we'll say, what do you think of this? And we'll kind of go back and forth, and usually within about a day, Joseph will send me a message on Facebook and say, I've written an entire song around that thing that we were talking about. So sometimes the ideas are pretty slow and percolating, but once they get going, Joseph does a great job of kind of bringing all these different ideas together pretty quickly. It's pretty cool.
All right. Now a quote from probably one of the best bass players in the world, John Taylor of Duran Duran. I quote, he says this: "The bass should tell a story from beginning to end." How important is the bass in Fell Harvest's music?
I would say very important, by virtue of the fact that I am the bass player and I also write most of the material, so I can make sure the bass is very much important. One of the things that I think set Thorns apart and Fell Harvest apart is I draw a lot of songwriting influence from bass-driven bands like Typo Negative, Iron Maiden. I listen to a fair amount of progressive rock like Yes, King's X. Doug Pinnick from King's X is one of my absolute favorite bassists. So I really try to put the bass in the role of both the rhythm guitar and bass and really drive the entire song. And that frees Liam to kind of stand on top. As a three-piece with only one guitarist, you can either fall apart doing that or you can sound really, really unique. And I hope we land in the latter bucket.
Joseph would never say this, I don't think, but I was a little nervous finding out that we were going to be playing as a three-piece with myself acting as kind of a rhythm guitarist and a lead guitarist. It's something that I just didn't have very much experience with. But once I started kind of digging into these songs and kind of seeing where he was approaching things from a songwriting perspective, it really did make sense that, oh, we're both the rhythm guitarist in this band. And while it still has a very clear identity, like all the bass parts do, they meld together in a way that really lends us both a lot of freedom to kind of play lead and rhythm at the same time. So the bass is massively important to the sound of this band.
Yeah. I listen to a lot of different genres too to pull influence from bassists. One of my new favorites is Scott Clendenin from Death. He played on their last album and he's phenomenal.
We absolutely love Death, and the main reason Liam got the gig was when I put my ad up on Craigslist. The song he chose to send me was Crystal Mountain. I was like, all right, if this guy can do Crystal Mountain but still wants to play Doom, he's the dude I need.
All right. And speaking of bass again, how does it feel being one of the very few bands to have a bass player and a lead singer?
I mean, it doesn't seem that few to me, although I realize my viewpoint is skewed by listening to bands that do that. So I'm just following in the footsteps of people that have always really inspired me, going like Kronos from Venom, Chris Squire in Yes, Lemmy, Getty, all of those guys, and of course Doug, who is an absolutely massively cool bassist if you're not familiar with King's X.
Another good bass player who's also the lead singer is Fat Mike. Because he can play extremely difficult bass lines and still sing at the same time.
That is never easy. That is, I struggle not even with difficult bass lines and singing at the same time.
Yeah. Okay. Now let's talk about something else interesting for guitar players. In your style of music, are floating bridges a good idea?
God. That's a really good question. I can tell you about probably Joseph can correct me on this, but probably about 70% of the album was recorded on a guitar with a fixed bridge, and the other 30% on one with a floating bridge. And I can say the guitar that I play on stage has a floating bridge. It's awesome. I love it. I can get all of the sounds I want for the lead and rhythm out of there. Man, is it a pain to set up and kind of to get sounding perfect by myself. And that's also just because I'm a clumsy person, I think. But they're a great idea. Make sure that you have a good guitar tech that you trust nearby, I think, if you want to be playing them regularly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know they're a pain in the butt. I have 2 of them.
Is that right?
Here's my first one.
Nice.
Nice.
Very nice.
And this one is actually the same guitar that you have behind you, just maybe a different color.
Ooh, all right. That's pretty cool. Okay.
Nice. Beautiful.
It's a Jackson. It's another Jackson. It's an X series soloist.
All right, I've got mine right here. You can see it. The Rhodes V 7-string. This is what we recorded all of the lead guitar parts on for the album.
This is probably the main rhythm guitar, which is a fixed bridge Schecter.
Yep, but all the album was recorded on 7-string guitars. So again, kind of something a little adventurous for us to do because I've never set up a 7-string guitar with a floating bridge before, but that was an interesting experience trying to do that on the fly while we were trying to track leads at the same time.
Yeah. My rhythm guitar is a Squire.
Okay.
So that's all I have that sounds good.
Oh.
The only other guitar I have is this crappy Epiphone knockoff of an SG that doesn't stay in tune.
Yeah,
Been there.
They're fun guitars, but they do not like to be stable, do they?
Yeah, they do not like to be stable. Okay. What's your go-to guitar tuning, Liam?
We pretty much have done everything on this album in standard tuning. with the 7-string guitar, so we have the low B there. We kind of experimented around when we first started playing together with some C sharp tuning and some D tuning, and that all sounded pretty good. But I think it was pretty clear to Joseph and I mean, a couple months in, we wanted to have a little bit more range and flexibility in what we were playing. And I remember messaging him, well, I have the 7-string guitar sitting around in my basement. You want to try that next practice and just kind of see what happens? And I think that really clicked for us. So just with the standard B tuning on a 7-string guitar, we have the range to do pretty much everything that we want to do.
Yeah, and it was definitely Liam who brought that. I was playing in E standard in Craftion, but at the time, but I was using my 5-string bass, so I had the full low B. I was used to moving downward in that area. So when he suggested bringing his Ibanez RG over, I was like, well, yeah, let's try that. And it took us about 30 seconds to realize this was exactly where we needed to be.
Yep.
Yeah, I got a 5-string bass too. It's right back here.
Yeah. What is that? I don't recognize that headstock.
Oh, it's it's called a Toby.
So yeah, that's I forget his last name, but Michael Tobias Designs, MTB. Before he sold the company to Gibson, then he started Toby, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, that's Toby Deluxe 5. I've played it forever. That's Mexican precision bass over here, and then Sub-Series Stingray.
Nice. Cool collection, man.
Mm-hmm. I also have an electronic kit to my left, but you can barely see it.
My main bass is downstairs in the practice space, but it is a Esch Stinger 5-string. I use that across everything on this album.
Cool. Okay, next song is The Lark at Morning. This is the first track that I heard that sounded a bit more doomy. In particular, I heard influence from the great gods of doom metal, Sun.
Ooh, that's a pretty interesting comparison. I like that too. I mean, I will tell you, this was the maybe second song that I learned when I joined what was then Thorns of Acanthus. And I remember really being taken with the kind of droning feel of the verse riff. And I really love that, and how it kind of transitions, into these faster, thrashier parts in the middle, but how it kind of sits in this very drone adjacent space for most of the song. I really enjoy that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And plus, Sun kind of originated doom metal as we know it. If we didn't have It Took the Night to Believe, Black Sabbath wouldn't have existed.
Yep. No, that's Sun is a great band. Interesting comparison. It's not one that I would have ever made, but I can kind of hear it. That is one that was definitely originally a Thorns of Acanthus song. It was supposed to be on an album that we ended up never recording, and it's one that I still wanted to keep up there. I will say it's not my most favorite song, but it seems to be a lot of fans' favorite song. So we decided to put it on the record and continue playing it live. It's also one that I think really woke up and got its first potential when we moved to 7 strings, because it was written originally all in C sharp, or all in D rather. We played most of it in D, but because with that low B, we drop down and make that really cool transition into the middle section. I think that really gives the song a lot more dynamic nature.
All right. How would you describe your band as a drink?
Definitely red wine.
Cool. How would you describe it as food?
I'll let Liam handle this one.
I have no idea.
The most well done fish that ever existed, perhaps.
That's good. Yeah, let's do a blackened salmon on a cedar plank over a fire on the Pacific Ocean.
Awesome. If you were offered $1,000, not 1,000 songs, if you were offered $1,000 to record yourself and upload to YouTube, you performing one of your songs while discoing, would you do it?
I mean, I'd give it a try. I don't think I can disco, but
No,
I
if
would.
you're, yeah, I'm sorry.
Hey, for $1,000, man, on YouTube, I don't have that many followers on there, I don't suppose. So it's not like too many people are going to see it. So it'll be just fine.
Yeah. Live and let live, eh? Next track is The Wind That Shakes the Barley. It kind of scared me when it went from acoustic and airy to just blast beats.
well, that's actually a cover, and it's a song that is very near to my heart, and I really love it. It's a traditional Irish folk song or folk ballad about one of the rebellions against the English that the Irish have fought. My family is part Irish, and I grew up with a lot of Irish folklore. That sort of bonds to singing and tragedy from a very early age, and I think there's something just inherently doom metal about any Irish song.
All right.
So I wanted to take it and do it authentically, but also bring some of the pain and tragedy into a modern context. And obviously that is a combination of doom and some, trem-picked dissonant chords.
All right. Now, I always hear the term primeval in reference to metal. What does this mean to you?
I mean, when I think primeval, I immediately go to, these ancient massive creatures, things like mastodons and smilodons, or even more ancient kind of organisms. There's a weight to anything old, I think. When you think of something that is just eons before you, there's a heaviness to it just naturally to the thought. And I think that's why it's a natural adjective to use to describe really dense, really emotionally weighted music.
Yeah, I remember speaking to Paul Mazurkowitz from Cannibal Corpse, and he said that primeval meant to him it's just primal and vicious, and it doesn't hold back.
I think as well, I've been thinking about this a lot recently, but I think with a lot of heavy metal music, there's a big or deep connection with kind of the natural world and kind of this raw existence outside of society. And I think that that term primeval really captures that very well, and kind of this heaviness and this kind of extremity that exists outside of human civilization or human society. I don't know if that makes sense as I'm saying it out loud, but that's kind of where my mind goes when I hear that.
Oh, it definitely makes sense, and it also makes sense coming from one of the world's greatest death metal drummers.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And it was an honor to speak to him.
Of course.
I'm jealous. That's really cool.
Yup.
Yeah, it's up on my YouTube. You can view it. Where is it? Right over there.
Awesome.
I will definitely check it out.
Okay. So to make lemonade, you squeeze lemons. Now, what do you squeeze to make metal?
Sadness.
Yeah. Your own heart.
I thought if you squeezed sadness, it made emo.
Well, I mean, if I were 10 years younger, that's probably what I would have ended up doing. But I was born in the 70s, so I ended up a metalhead.
Yes, and I was born in 2006, so emo is no music.
I will withhold.
I won't let him withhold. Liam just turned 30.
That's true. So, relative newbie to the metal scene, I suppose.
He's a grown up now.
I turned 15 in October.
That is awesome. And you're already doing interviews with Cannibal Corpse. That is absolutely great. My nephews would be very jealous because they want to become Twitchers or YouTubers.
Mm-hmm. It's not that hard. Actually, it's very hard.
Yeah.
Okay. 10 minutes in a room alone with one of your biggest musical influences. Who is it and what would you talk about? I'll start with you, Liam.
Oh gosh, that's a really good question. I would probably say I would love to sit down and have a conversation with Ishan from Emperor. He's been one of my biggest musical influences. I mean, since I was a high schooler, I remember the first time I listened to the album Anthems to the Welkin at Dusk, and it kind of rewrote for me what heavy metal and what black metal specifically could sound like, and kind of the depth of sound that you could achieve. And so I'm sure he'd be pretty freaked out by me, because I'd probably be spazzing out pretty hard if I was able to talk to him. But I would love to just kind of talk about how he incorporates philosophy, into his writing, and how he manages to kind of traverse these huge gaps between black metal and doom and acoustic passages and jazz all in the same album without it sounding forced or contrived.
Yeah, if you were spazzing out when meeting Eson, it would probably take a whole new meaning to their song, Curse All You Men!
True, but it would probably happen.
It'd be worth it.
It would be super worth it.
Okay, Joseph, your turn.
It'd have to be James Hetfield. Not as highly regarded a musician as Ishan, but literally hearing And Justice for All is the reason I'm a musician. It absolutely changed my life. I'm still a massive Metallica fan, and I don't know that I would actually talk to him. I would probably just like shake his hand and be like, "This is the right hand that completely changed heavy metal music. How can I be in the same room as him?" But yeah,
yes, Papa Head is a big teddy bear.
Yeah.
Okay. Now on to a song you mentioned earlier, The Barren Fields. Yeah, it's kind of symphonic. I kind of like it, and sped up too. That was also cool. What do you want to share about this one?
This is the song that I mentioned. Liam did write the main riff, which is the first riff you hear, and the riff that encompasses the verse. I kind of strung it together with other bits. I had part of the middle laying around, and then the really fast part kind of came in at the end. We wanted something that would lift the overall energy and give it more punch, and it seemed like just a really quick thrashy sort of bit in that middle part. And once that happened, it was obvious that, well, we can't do this without some trem divey shreddy solos here, and they absolutely fit, and Liam was able to step up and pull them all off and did a great job.
Yeah, I think if you said you had to show a Fell Harvest song to someone to kind of encapsulate who we are as a band, I'd be pretty tempted to pick this one. It has the very slow kind of doom inspired parts. It has some thrashier riffs. It has a couple leads that I'm pretty proud with. It also has a pretty sweet bass solo from Joseph in there too. So I think it kind of really captures what we were going for with this project. So this is one of the ones that's pretty near and dear to my heart.
We got 5 minutes left because Zoom is cutting me down to 40.
That's fine.
I'll skip ahead a couple questions and ask the ones that are most relevant to me.
Sure, man.
Do you think Canada is a cold country climate-wise?
No, Canada is a wonderful country climate-wise. My older brother still lives there. He's a professor at the University of British Columbia in Edmonton. There's certainly parts of it that get really cold, and you can definitely find some frozen bits. But I mean, the rainforests around Vancouver are temperate, very wet, very beautiful, wonderful mountain biking and climbing. So you can get a lot of different stuff in Canada.
Yeah, my wife and I spent some time kind of on the Washington-Canada border just a few weeks ago, and I thought it was delightful. Yeah, kind of over in the rainforested area near Vancouver. So, no, I think it is. Well, I'm sure there are some parts that are freaking cold, but it seems like a pretty nice place to me.
Uh-huh. Now, you're from Cheyenne, right?
I live in Cheyenne, Wyoming. Liam lives just south of the Colorado border in Greeley.
So your record high is 100 degrees? That's child's play. For all you in the States who thought Canada was cold, think again. Our record high is 107.1 degrees where I live.
I believe it.
And the forecast this week is going to shatter that record at 111 degrees.
Ugh.
That sounds profound.
That's 44 degrees Celsius.
I'm really sorry. I hope you have a basement with air conditioning.
It's all right. I can handle it. I got my And yes, that's 44 degrees Celsius for all those who use the metric system. It's It's so much more efficient. Okay. If you could put something in a time capsule that would not be open for 50 years, what would it be and why?
Thumb drive full of Bitcoin, just in case.
Yeah, that's a good idea because
That's
Bitcoin is going to be taking everything over in the future.
Exactly.
All right. Now, this is the last question. It's also fitting because this is a question I've asked all the artists I've interviewed so far. Coming up on the 60 mark, I believe. That's 60 bands.
Awesome.
Okay. The challenge is a cover of a Beck song. If we all know who this is, Beck, by the way.
Yeah.
I
I
don't
didn't
listen
think
to
about
Beck.
that for a second.
That's a tough
Beck
one.
had, yeah, okay. Now, I picked two songs here. Totally Confused from Western Harvest Field by Moonlight, or Mayonnaise Salad. One song is an acoustic ballad. The other song is one hell of a sonic experiment. Make your choice.
I would do Totally Confused if it's the song I remember. And again, I don't listen to Beck, so I don't know songs that well. But he is an absolutely scary good musician.
Yep.
I think you could make something really heart-wrenching and powerful out of that to do it as a doom metal cover.
All right. Now, if it makes it big, will you be sending me a check?
Sure, but it will be in Canadian money.
That's fine.
What's the conversion rate these days? Is that a safe bet for us?
It's
I hope
actually
so.
only
I'll have
about
to check it out
$1.15,
later.
so no, it's not like it was in the early 2000s.
Oh, dang it. All right, fine.
Yep. Okay. Now, we're running out of time here. In fact, we got like 58 seconds left. So, I'd like to thank you, Joseph and Liam, for taking the time to talk with me here on the X. I wish you well with the Pale Light in a Dying World. Stay safe and be well.
You too. Thank you very much, Ben.
Hey, it was nice talking with you, man. Thank you.
You're welcome.